All right, today we have a 2003 Toyota Tundra, and it's an A340 or a 3040 LE valve body. It's sent to us for an upgrade, but if you take a look here, this thing was like severely overheated, and the solenoids actually melted, all this plastic. So it's going to be interesting to see what we're going to find in here. So let's take a look. See if these are going to want to come out here. So this is a 4 solenoid setup with a couple shift solenoids, a pressure control, and a lockup. So this one's not melted. I'm going to change them as a set, obviously, but I have a phone call out to this customer. I haven't heard back yet, but I want to see what he really had going on with this vehicle, or maybe maybe this valve body's out of a core transmission or something like that, and it has nothing to do with his vehicle. I mean, if he's lucky, because you know, if this comes out of your transmission, you have problems way bigger than the valve body. I don't know if you can see that. It's like literally oozed and flowed out of there. So I bet that was a solenoid code. And this is interesting in these things. This is kind of a dummy solenoid. It's just put here to plug up this hole. So it literally doesn't do anything. It's just like an empty can. Believe it or not, this thing doesn't really smell horrible. Like it's really cooked, but who knows? Maybe when this was going on, somebody changed the fluid or did a flush or something like that that got rid of most of the nastiness. It's really a multitude of bolts here, so I like to take all of them out except for one, and then I flip this thing over. And this is your pressure control solenoid. So this goes in here with the connector facing towards the bottom of the pan. So there's a couple different length bolts, but I'll go over all of that for you when we're putting it back together. Right now, my curiosity is killing me, and I want to see what's wrong here. It looks like there might be some liquid in here, like water, maybe. Okay, so we have a relief valve that goes here, the screen, and I believe that's it on this side. Yeah. So we'll take the pressure regulator out while we're here. And again, if you watch any of our other videos, it's kind of a special retainer that's specific to the pressure regulator. So there's different size boost valves at the factory, right? And this is going to add to your line pressure with throttle opening. So oftentimes we could change this to a larger diameter spool in here, and that's going to give an increase in line pressure. And this is the blue pressure regulator spring, which this is the stiffest factory one that I typically see. Not that that's relevant. I mean, this is something that we change when we do our modification anyway, but Just an FYI, I guess. Pressure regulator valve, and this feels really loose in here. They tend to wear out, and we're going to end up reboring this for sure. And again, if you look, it's like kind of gelatinous, and it's like usually a sign that maybe there's a little liquid that got in this transmission. And when you have something overheat like that to the point where it's melting the solenoids, that typically tells you there's something going on with the torque converter. Like oil isn't flowing in and out of it very well. Almost all of the heat in your transmission comes from your torque converter. So fluid's supposed to get pumped into the torque converter, back out through your cooler, get cooled, and then it goes back to the transmission to you know, become your lube circuit and get picked up by the filter again. But when that breaks down, you really generate heat in a big way very quickly. So let's mark these check balls. And there's a bunch of different locations. And as always, I will show you later where they are, at least for this particular valve body. But you kind of have to default to what you took apart because there's many, many different locations. What's typically here, 9, Ken, or 8?
About, yeah, usually 9.
Okay, we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got 10 here. So this is a 10 check ball style. And we usually don't have to get too fancy. Most of what we do involves just putting them back where they came from. You know, here and there, you're going to eliminate one or something like that, but that's not the norm. So these two retainers are always going to fall out. Okay, so you got to take note of where they go and put them back in. Right, they hold these two valves in, and then these two valves oftentimes are going to fall out. We just grab them. They're not like really a moving part. They're just a seat for a check ball. Okay, so they both look the same, but it's that, a check ball, and it goes in here. And again, there's not really any reason to mess with them other than you just want to get them out of the way so they don't fall out on you and get lost. This one's staying stuck in, so we'll leave it where it is. This one's kind of defying gravity. There we go. So there's also two different size check balls when you go in here. There's like the 219 thousandths. And then we have, two that are a little bit larger, the 250 thousandths. And again, I'm going to show you all that later. So right now we're going to wash it up a little bit. Also, I neglected this. There's two more screens here. And on this rust, you can see it's like further indication that we might have a little water intrusion. And that's not good on an automatic transmission, as you probably could imagine. But people don't know why. So here's kind of the reason. You have a clutch in an automatic transmission, and you have friction material glued to it. Right? There's a metal backing in here. So this metal, and it's got paper on each side. So the glue that they use is water soluble, which is fine because you never really should have water in your transmission. It's not a big deal. But if you do get water in your transmission, it's kind of like when people steam envelopes open to melt the glue and you know, have everything come apart. So what happens, the glue melts and the friction component of the clutch flakes off, and it's going to get caught in the filter and usually clog it up. And the symptom of a clogged filter is going to be like a whining noise accompanied by eventual no movement. Like oftentimes it'll work for a while when you first start it up until that filter gets clogged. Once it does, it's going to start not being able to pull through it, and it's going to whine, stop moving, and then oftentimes you could shut it off, and 5 minutes later start it up, and it'll drive around for a little while until it gets clogged again. And people are like, oh, can I just change the filter? And obviously that's not the answer, because the filter's getting clogged with something. Filters don't just get clogged up without a transmission falling apart. All right, so this is kind of the norm. We have to bore out the pressure regulator as usual. You can see it's cutting through that valve body pretty easily. So this is going to enable us to put an oversized valve and restore this thing to the clearance that it's supposed to be. When you hear that sound stop, that knows that you hit bottom with the reamer. And you always want to turn it as you're taking it out. Now, if you're working on these things, there's probably almost 10 different possibilities for valve body gaskets. I mean, we have a pretty good handle on them, but you want to save your old gaskets and match them up. And hopefully the guy that worked on it before you, if there is one, didn't put the wrong gaskets. But you know, the idea is to not have any covered holes. And you know, there's 3 basic types for the later style A340s. And it's usually one of those 3. All right. Also, this is some of the stuff that's going in here. We have the Sonex oversized pressure regulator valve, boost valve, lockup valve wears out. So that's all going to get changed when we do this. All right, here's some of the goodies that are going in here. This is our oversized pressure regulator valve, and that's a Sonex piece. This is also another Sonex piece. This is your boost sleeve. So this, if you could see, there's a little indentation in which your retainer sits. Some of these you're going to have different steps, but on the Sonex replacement one, you're not. You have an accumulator control. Its retainer here. All right, and that's about it for this side for now. I mean, we have our manual valve, but we could kind of put that in at any point. On this side, we have these 2 that we took apart before. All right, so this piece is going to go in first, followed by a check ball, followed by the outer valve. And I'm not going to put these retainers in until I turn this back down, because they're just falling out anyway. So now we have our new lockup control sleeve. The other one wasn't severely worn, so it doesn't really explain our overheating. I'm still waiting to get more information from the customer as to what was going on, or if this is even something that's out of his vehicle. And these are sometimes a little tight going in. There it goes. And if you see, We're going way down in here with this retainer. All right, next we have these two that we took out before, because otherwise gravity takes them out for us. So I'm just going to grease those in a little bit. All right, all these check balls are back in according to where they came out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This is a 250 thousandths ball, and this is a 250 thousandths ball. All right, so these two are bigger than the rest of them. Your mileage may vary, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say if you put it back together like this, it'll still work, even if that wasn't the way your original was set up. Okay, now on the other side, we have a screen, a screen, a screen, and I believe it's a converter check valve and spring. The pressure relief by the pressure regulator valve. So now we have the right gaskets here. I put a little trans grease just to hold them in place. You want to make sure your screens engage this properly. To use a little trickery here. Perfect. All right, so we have, as with most things, let's see, these holes are a little bit smaller than these holes. All right, so these are always, you find your two smaller holes, and that's almost anything on any transmission. Your two smaller holes are going to have to go in first and get tightened first, and that's what's going to align everything else. So we're just going to bring these down. I'm not even going to say snug, but bring them down a little bit. And now we just, our pressure control, solenoid, its bracket. You have to make sure this engages into it correctly. And we have 3 different length bolts. So what I tend to do is I just put the middle length ones in first, so it makes it kind of easier to find the rest of them. And this is not necessarily a comprehensive guide. I'm just kind of showing you what we're doing on this valve body. You're doing it yourself. Don't listen to a word I'm saying. You are on your own. Our short bolts, that's pretty self-explanatory as to where they go. Then, of course, our long bolts. And these things are something I like to go over and torque a few times because they do tend to loosen up. And if you have the option of letting it sit overnight before it has to go back in the transmission and tightening it again, you know, that's never going to hurt anybody's feelings. Okay, that one doesn't look to be sticking up too much, but it's all the same length bolt. Right, so we have those tightened already. Then we're just going to go hit the rest of them gently. And then we're going to torque them to 60 inch-pounds. And again, we're going to go over these once again before this thing ships. So what we have left is our dummy solenoid. And if you look, these have little indentations there. So you have to find where this retainer is going to sit in there properly and hold it in. And if this thing is sitting flush, you have it correctly. And as we said before, this is just to plug up a leak. This solenoid doesn't actually do anything. In other versions of this transmission, this would be an accumulator control solenoid, but they didn't see the need for that in this version. And we're up in the air, waiting on the customer to see what we're doing on the solenoid, so I'm not going to put those in at this point. No, this is what we have so far, and again, all we're going to do is go over those once again and torque them again. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.